if you break things down so technically precise, aren't you throwing away creativity? And I would argue that throughout history, there are those people that have taken things and broken the mold in ways that they couldn't have done that if they didn't know those principles. So I'm thinking of guys like Joseph Albers, who talks about shape and color and those contrasts. So Albers, the Albers Foundation. Google that, and you can look. And there are pictures in like MoMA and other museums that look like squares of color, and people look at that and be like, "What the heck is this?" Well, that was Albers looking at shape and contrast and color and breaking things down and creating a totally new type of art, and doing that from a perspective of taking all the technically correct things and making them do something they'd never done before. You can look at Frank Gehry's work. So Frank Gehry did the Disney concert hall, Balboa. He did the Guggenheim, a bunch of different, like those buildings that look like they're fluid. That could not have happened if he didn't understand all of the principles of engineering and load-bearing structures and how different metals and materials could be shaped and formed. If you look at Picasso, most of us know Picasso from all of his Cubist stuff that he did, but he didn't just start there. He started as a normal painter. He went through different evolutions. He went through his blue period. And if you study him, you can see that evolution of how he first understood those principles of art and color and texture and shape and form and leading lines and golden rule, all that stuff, the golden spiral, and then started changing that. He really wanted to take perspective and flatten it, and he invented Cubism. You look at Botero in Colombia and what he did with looking at the shapes of people and making them really plump and fun. You look at the Impressionists, the things that the Impressionists did when they did them at the World's Fair, they weren't even allowed to exhibit their works. They had to make their own exhibition, and people were like up in arms about how they were taking and painting just common things, not royalty, not things from scripture, not these noble kings and queens and princes. They were just painting, the handmaid and the barmaid and people on the street, things like that. Pointillism. You can't have pointillism if you don't understand additive and subtractive color and the relationship between colors and contrast, and on and on and on. You look at people that changed how comedy was done. So if you look at Steve Martin, you should read the book Born Standing Up. He was a philosopher, and he said, I should be able to take my philosophical views and put them on top of comedy and create something that's funny, but it's funny because you had to be there. Nobody had ever done that before. You look at Jerry Seinfeld and how he had observational comedy that was new and unique. Lots of people are doing it now, but when he started, it was a new thing. There's a documentary called Comedian. I highly recommend that you watch it. It's a year in Jerry Seinfeld building out his comedy. Learn about art history and all of these different things. Because what you'll learn is over and over and over again, those people that do something that's new and exciting and fresh, they all start from that standpoint of understanding those basic principles and then looking at them in ways that nobody else had looked at them before. And they create things like the Frank Gehry buildings that we've seen. They create stand-up like Steve Martin, which is funny, but we don't know why it's funny. It just is. We get, these paintings that Joseph Albers made that were like, okay, there's something about this that I resonate with, but why? So those are the types of things. So the answer is, do I think the systematic and logical approach to studio lighting setup ruins creativity? I don't. What I think is that you have to understand those things, either intuitively or from a lot of study, and then figure out new perspectives and new ways to apply those things to create an art that is individually yours.